This
regarding our
conference will
preliminary.
now be recorded.
Now we're going to begin, now that we're being recorded, this evening for our public hearing, starting with a presentation by Great West regarding our preliminary engineering report. So Joel, if you'd like to.
We've also got a sign-up sheet at the desk up here. People can sign that before they leave tonight. Documenting that there was public attendance to help the town's funding applications as we move forward here. All the commissioners have one. All right, well, thanks for having me tonight. I'll try to keep this as brief as I can, knowing that you have other items on your agenda. As Nikki mentioned, we've been working on a preliminary engineering report of the town's water system. Been working on it here for a couple of years now. It's kind of ever evolving, and I think we've kind of got a plan to move forward. And so this will kind of just summarize the findings of the water system and what we've found and items that might need to be addressed and how we would go about that. So I'm just going to go straight down through the outline here. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to stop and ask me any questions at any time. Basically, what is a preliminary engineering report? It's a study of an existing system, whether it be the water, the wastewater. Some communities have a stormwater system, but it looks at the existing system, tries to define any problems that might exist in a system, evaluates alternatives to address any system deficiencies, and that would include a selection of a preferred alternative, establishes costs and potential funding scenarios, develops an implementation schedule. It's used as an avenue to facilitate public comment. Public hearing tonight as part of that process. Public comments are warranted and certainly welcomed. And then PER is often required by regulatory agencies if a system has compliance issues, and it's also used by the funding agencies to supplement applications for funding to different grants and loan programs. So that's kind of an overview of what a preliminary engineering report is. One of the first things we always like to do is look at the population, estimate that through the planning period. As far as the PER goes, the planning period is 20 years. We started this back in 2022, so this is looked out to 2042. We utilize Montana Department of Commerce and U.S. Census data to help establish that. Table 1 there kind of looks at the historic population dating back to 1980, not only for the town of Ennis, but also as Madison County as a whole. You can see we've seen some kind of some steady growth, particularly since the 2000s. Current population estimates are about 917 for the town. If you looked at a 1% population growth per year, which would place the 2042 population at about 1,100. Those kind of spike and dip, and that's just kind of a conservative estimate at this time. We then like to look at the water demand. How much water does the system use? Knowing the current water demand is necessary to calculate future water needs throughout the planning period. We use the 2021 well hour meter data, well pumping rates, and the resulting water source monthly flows. Table 2 there summarizes the monthly average daily source flows and the resulting per capita per day water use, basically how much does each person use over the course of a month and ultimately a year. You can see down at the bottom totals in 2021. The town used about 111 million gallons of water. That averages out on a daily basis to just over 305,000 gallons per day. If you divide that by the population, it works out to about 326 gallons per capita per day. And again, that's over the course of the year. You can look at the monthly numbers. In the wintertime, it's about 200. In the peak summer, when irrigation's in full force, in the mid 500 gallons per person per day. Again, if we average that over the course of the year, 305,000 gallons, you just equate that to a flow rate over a 24-hour period. It's about 212 gallons a minute. We also like to look at the maximum day demands. That's critical in sizing some of the water infrastructure. If we looked at the highest daily total hour meter usage in that year, the maximum day use was 639,000 gallons per day. That equates to a flow rate of 444 gallons a minute. As we continue through this discussion and presentation, you're going to hear these nomenclature, average day demand, maximum day demand, because it does carry through some of the sizing analysis. So with the projected population and the average use per person, we can project water demands through the planning period.
Sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt. I have
No
a
problem.
question. How did you arrive at the 639,000 gallons per day number?
So we looked through a full year's data on the hour meters on the well pump and looked at what the highest daily pumping usage was, or the hour, how it accounted for it as hours of usage, equated that with a flow rate that we know the well that can do that many hours times that many gallons per minute, come up with a total daily flow of 639,000.
Was this from last year's data?
2021.
21.
Yep. That was the best year, full year's worth of data that we had. Some of the other years were a little sporadic, didn't have complete data, so this was the one that gave us the greatest confidence.
Thank you.
Yep. So then we're going to projected water demands, taking that 326 gallons per capita per day over a year, and then looking at the growth basically in 5-year increments. By the time we get to 2042 with a population of 1,100, that average day demand will go up from 305,000 currently to about just under 359,000 gallons a day. That flow rate will go from 212 to approaching 250 gallons a minute. On a maximum day demand basis, we mentioned the 639,000 gallons per day. With that increased population, we may see usage approach 750,000 gallons per day at the end of this planning period. That equates to a flow rate of a little over 520 gallons per minute. With the demands established, we then looked at the different system components, focusing first on the water supply. Currently, the town is supplied by 2 wells, one on the upper bench, one down below. Well number 2, which is down the street from Comley, produces roughly 350 gallons per minute. Well number 3, which is the newer of the 2 wells, was drilled 10 years ago roughly. That one produces about 250 gallons a minute. So how adequate is that supply? The Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, is the regulatory agency for the state that oversees public water and wastewater systems. They've established standards for those systems. Per those DEQ standards, the water system must be able to provide the maximum daily demand with the highest capacity pump out of service. As we've established, the 2042 projected maximum daily demand is 522 gallons a minute. Right now, if the largest well is out of service, only 250 gallons per minute can be provided. So you can see by DEQ standards that the water supply is not sufficient. An additional 272 gallons per minute of source capacity would be needed to meet the projected growth and the DEQ standards that would accompany that. Some other deficiencies with the water supply. Neither well is equipped with any sort of chlorination equipment that would allow for disinfection of the distribution system should contamination be suspected. Many years ago, the local telephone company, when they're installing fiber optic lines, bored a hole through the town's transmission main from the water tank, ended up draining the entire water system. To get that system back in service, basically the whole system had to be disinfected and flushed. There was no easy way to get the system disinfected, no way to get easily get chlorine into the system. Basically, it required the operator to climb the water tank with buckets of chlorine and dump it in the top. Not the most efficient way to disinfect your system if you've got some sort of a problem. Another deficiency, the water supply is not equipped with any sort of a backup power source. In the event of a power outage, the system will need to rely on the storage volume in the storage tank to maintain service to the users. Any sort of prolonged power outage could result in the community being without water after less than 2 full days at average daily flows. Security issues, neither the new well number 3 site nor the storage tank have any sort of security fencing. Lack of security fencing makes it difficult to prevent vandalism. All the users. The next system component we evaluated was the water storage. Right now, the town is served by a 530,000 gallon on-grade epoxy coated bolted steel tank up here above the golf course. It was constructed back in 1995. It's in fair condition at best. It's definitely due for recoating on both the interior and the exterior. More problematic and more concerning is it's leaking. And as time has gone on here, even just over the last couple of years, that leakage is more significant. I believe it was back in August, Eric, that you had someone come in and patch some leaks in that tank to try to.
And then October.
Again, okay.
Same panel.
Yeah.
It still drips, but it's not like there's still.
Yeah. So again, fair condition at best. Water storage is critical for 2 primary reasons. It provides your operational storage, but it also provides your fire suppression storage. If you've got a large fire, most of your fire flow is going to come from that water storage tank and is critical for safety reasons. Required storage capacity, DEQ standards require the minimum allowable storage must be equal to the average day demand plus any fire flow demand where fire protection is provided. Right now, with an average day demand of just over 305,000 gallons, commercial district downtown would need a fire flow demand of 2,500 gallons a minute. The fire code requires that flow rate for 2 hours. So that's 300,000 gallons of storage. So the total storage required based on today's numbers, 605,000 gallons. If we project that out another 20 years with average day demand going up to 358,000, that same fire flow demand of 300,000. Total storage required at the end of the planning period would be about 658,000, just under 659,000 gallons total. Again, right now we've got 530,000 gallons. So the existing storage capacity is not sufficient to meet current or future demands. An additional 130,000 gallons of storage would be needed to meet those future demands. Then we moved on to the water distribution system. In general, the distribution system is fairly well laid out. DEQ requires the minimum size of water main for providing fire protection and serving fire hydrants should be 6-inch diameter, and larger size mains will be required if necessary to allow the withdrawal of the required fire flow while still maintaining the minimum residual pressure that's specified. Basically, you need to have 20 psi in your distribution system at all times under any sort of usage scenario. Majority of the distribution system is 6 inches or larger. There are some small diameter mains, but those are kind of on the outer parts of the system. There is a large diameter core, 12, 10, and 8-inch through the downtown area to provide the needed fire flows to the school and the commercial areas downtown. Static pressures in the system range between about 100 psi in the downtown area and 75 psi coming up here on the upper bench. So static pressures in the system are fairly good, or excellent actually, and even on the high side for the downtown area. To further evaluate the pressures and flows in the distribution system, we used a computer hydraulic modeling program that is used. The system inputs, flows, pipe sizes, system demands are all entered into the system, and then we're able to run scenarios where how does the system react under average day demands, max day demands, peak hour, what kind of fire flows can we get through the system. That program uses what's called a Hayes and Williams equation to calculate head loss as water flows through a pipe. That uses a coefficient that's based on the roughness of the pipe interior. And there's standard values that can be assumed for different pipe materials, whether it's PVC, asbestos cement, cast iron, ductile iron. And we use those C values to help develop the hydraulic model. With the model set up, we then ran several different scenarios. The average daily flow, peak daily flow, peak hourly flow, as I previously mentioned. And in addition to the maximum fire flow that can be attained from any given location in the distribution system while still maintaining that 20 psi minimum residual pressure that I talked about. DQ1 requires the system must be designed to maintain minimum normal working pressures of 35 psi. Minimum pressures under all conditions must be 20 or above. As I mentioned before, static pressures in the system are anywhere from 75 to 100, so we definitely are in exceedance of the minimum 35 under normal working system pressures. As we evaluated the different scenarios that I talked about, under average daily demand, there's no obvious problems. The model indicates that normal operating pressures are well above 35. Computer runs with peak daily and peak hourly demands yielded similar results. Really, we don't start to see any significant effects on the distribution system, so we start applying the needed fire flows throughout the system. We model those fire flows concurrently with the future peak daily demand flow just to assess the system as we move forward. And with the exception of a few dead-end mains on the extreme south and east sides of the system, we can get a minimum fire flows exceeding 1,000 gallons a minute throughout the system, which is the standard fire flow for residential areas. Available fire flows downtown, Main Street, and the school area exceed 2,500 gallons a minute, which also meets the recommended standards. So really the only identified deficiencies in the distribution system are some dead-end mains on those portions of the system that I mentioned, the south and east sides. Really those kind of limit flows. As long as they're being flushed out on a regular basis, we don't have any sort of buildup of biofilms or anything like that. And so that's really the main concerns with dead-end mains. There are some portions of the system that do not have sufficient valving to isolate sections of water main and to allow for directional flushing of the system in the event of emergency, similar to the one I talked about with the telephone company. And then there's several old fire hydrants in the distribution system that need to be replaced. And I know Eric has identified a list of those that he'd like to see replaced here in the near future. We always like to try to estimate system leakage, see what the condition of the distribution system is. Back in 2012, we performed a nighttime tank drawdown test. Over 2 consecutive nights, the protocol was to fill the tank at 2 o'clock in the morning, turn the well pumps off, and then measure the tank level drawdown between 2 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. Between those hours, there's really minimal usage in the water system. So that any usage that's occurring can be assumed that most of the change in the water level is due to leakage in the distribution system and or the tank, which is probably more prevalent at this point. Back then, both nights the test was conducted, the water level in the tank dropped 1.7 feet in 3.5 hours. Based on the geometry of the tank, this correlated to a volume of 22,500 gallons and a flow rate over that time period of 107 gallons a minute. So not an insignificant number when we've already established that water supply is lacking. Good.
So this data that you're using right here is 14 years old.
Yep.
Do you not have newer drawdown data?
We've talked about doing it, Eric, and it hasn't come to fruition. We tried it. Did you? I know you talked about doing it. I don't know that I ever got any information.
Yeah, we did that last.
Okay.
So I think there's been some upgrades to the system since then, right? Some replacements and so on. It may not be as bad as the, I guess.
And that very well may not be. I mean, that would certainly, if you can send me that information, Eric, we can get that incorporated.
I'm on it, but yeah.
Okay. Yep. But back then also, there was no visible leakage from the tank, and now there is, and so I think that's also an issue. So recognizing that some usage occurs during the night, it was assumed that 90% of the drawdown during this time period could be attributed to leakage. 90% of 107 gallons a minute is 96 gallons a minute, or 138,000 gallons a day, which translates to just over 50 million gallons a year. So at that time, it was pretty significant. I know you have done some leak detection, Eric, and had some leaks repaired. And I would be interested to see what impact that has had on the system leakage. Common rule of thumb, 15% of unaccounted for water is considered acceptable. Based on those numbers, the unaccounted for water at that time was 45%, so far exceeding what was considered acceptable. As far as water meters, system, all individual services are metered. The individual meters are over 25 years old, probably approaching the end of their service life. The town should look to replace those meters over a time period here to ensure the town is accurately meeting all the usage by the customers and to maximize the revenue potential. Sure.
How often should the tank drawdown be done, and how should it be done?
Really, the only time it's ever done, I mean, communities don't do it on a regular basis. I mean, there's no harm in doing it once a year, but communities just don't do that until there's something pushing it, like this analysis. Nobody really looks at that.
One of the things is, if I see out of the ordinance, I would do it. So, it's not 2 weeks. Right. If I see something.
I would say that a lot of systems, their metering of their water supply and their metering at the end usage, they have good data, and you can compare those two. Say, okay, we pumped 100 million gallons last year, but we only metered going to the users 60 million. That kind of does the same thing. In this case, we just don't have the data to do it that way. So
The big thing in that would be the meters. If you're giving water, like, you don't really know how much you're losing.
Yeah, so I raised this last time, when there's a public, so there's over 100 million gallons of water that's pumped per year in 21. And in 2014, we lost 50. Right? So before we go spending money on new wells, I think it makes more sense to find out how do we fix losing 50 instead of going to get more.
I think that is valid, and I think the town has been trying to do that for this whole time period.
But we don't know, right? The town doesn't know how much we lose in 14 years or 12 years.
Yep.
Right, so we don't know, right? And we don't know how much we bill water per year. So there's numbers there that we should have before we go spending, and I haven't even got to those pages yet, spending this type of money when we don't even know the information. So
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. What I can say is what I've seen in systems is the leakage is usually widespread. It may be in individual service lines. I mean, you would spend an inordinate amount of money trying to chase all of those leaks. I think the town has done a good job of bringing in leak detection, trying to find the major leaks and getting those repaired. But if you've got, 400 service lines that are all leaking a little bit, that's going to add up in a hurry. And so each community may view that differently, but I don't know where you stop that analysis and that work to do that.
I just think we need to start that analysis, not stop it, start it. Okay, thank you.
Let's see here. We've kind of identified system deficiencies. We then looked at different alternatives to address that. Additional supply is needed to ensure maximum day demands can be met with the largest source out of service. The town has been looking at additional water supply dating back to the early 2000s. We looked at completing some wells just down the street here at the rodeo grounds. Back in 2011 and 2012, town completed 2 exploratory test wells at a 2-acre parcel that the town purchased from the Ennis rodeo grounds. Deeper well is a nominal 12-inch diameter well that's screened and completed to a depth of 220 feet below ground surface. There was a shallower well that was completed, a 6-inch diameter well with 4-inch screen completed to a depth of 78 feet below ground surface. The initial testing of the wells did not result in well capacities the town was hoping for, and at that time the town elected not to do further work on the test wells. Due to continued water supply concerns in 2021, the town moved forward with a water supply hydrogeologic and exploration recommendation report. When locating redundant water supply sources for the town, several factors need to be considered, including the area hydrogeology, source water protection, proximity to the town's existing water infrastructure, planned and expected growth, and the price and availability of real estate. So all those components kind of went into that analysis. After that analysis was completed, the recommendation was to complete additional development and testing of the wells at the rodeo ground. That work was completed back in the summer of 2022. Basically, the deep well can produce 150 gallons a minute, which by DEQ standards would allow the town to use 100 gallons a minute. DEQ standards only allow for 2/3 usage of total well capacity. That's to ensure that an aquifer is not being stressed and overpumped. That deeper well could likely be completed as a redundant well by DNRC definition standard and process. And because of that, water rights permitting may not be needed. That well had already gone through a full DEQ approval process, so we know that completing that well was something that DEQ would be in favor of. The shallower well, 78 feet, only produces 90 gallons a minute, which would allow for usage 60 gallons a minute. That well was constructed strictly as an observation well for testing purposes. It did not undergo any sort of DEQ approval because it would not be pulling water from the same depth and aquifer as the other wells. It's unlikely to be considered a redundant well by DNRC definition. Again, just due to the depth of the water bearing formation. If we were to try to utilize that shallow well, full water rights permitting should be anticipated for that or any other shallow well. These days, water rights permitting, I'm going to tell you right, is a pain. It's an expensive, long, drawn-out process, and if the town can avoid that, you would be better off. Some modeling suggested that drilling another deep well roughly 100 feet away from the existing deep well at the rodeo grounds could potentially yield 105 gallons a minute with a net usable capacity of 75. That could also likely be completed as a redundant well by DNRC definition and process. With that, water rights permitting probably not be needed. But that well, if we proposed another well there, that would need to go through the full DEQ approval process. It should be noted that the current water rights limit total pumping rate at any one time to 550 gallons a minute. So as we see maximum daily demand start to approach that 550 gallons a minute, that's where it's going to get concerning, is that by water rights, you can only pump that amount. And at that point, may have to look at obtaining some additional water rights, or as development comes in, may have to require that developers bring water rights with them if they want water from the town, just because your water rights are going to kind of hamstring you at some point here. So developing 2 additional wells at the rodeo grounds. The estimated capital cost $925,000. If the town wished to add chlorination at each well house, just to have that ability, the estimated cost for that is $95,000. Providing security fencing at well number 3, estimated cost $11,000. And then installation of a backup generator at well number 2, just because that's your largest producing well. Estimated capital cost on that is $116,000. As far as water, excuse me, as far as water storage, we noted that the existing tank needs some rehab work, not only to fix the leaks that it's experiencing, but also needs to be recoated to extend the service life. We've established that the water storage capacity is insufficient, and to meet DEQ standards and future demands, 150,000 gallons of additional storage would be needed. If we were to rehab the existing tank and add just a second smaller 150,000 gallon tank, the estimated cost of that is $1.675 million. The other option, or one of the other options we looked at, was basically getting rid of the existing tank, not spending any money to try to rehab that and extend its service life, but just getting rid of it and replacing it with a single 700,000 gallon steel tank. Estimated capital cost on that's just under $2.6 million. The other storage option we looked at was replacing that existing tank with a new 700,000 gallon pre-stressed concrete storage tank. The estimated capital cost on that just under $3.1 million. As far as distribution system, we mentioned there's some fire hydrants that need to be replaced. The ones that Eric has identified, the estimated capital cost on that, $152,000. Installing some additional valving in the distribution system to improve the operation. Estimated capital cost on that, $111,000. And then I mentioned there's some dead end mains in the system. If we were to go in and loop those to get rid of them, estimated capital cost of that, $1.1 million. As far as water meters, if you were to look at replacing 20% of the meters per year for 5 years, each year that cost would be about $117,000 to get those replaced. As we compare those alternatives and look to select a preferred alternative, there's different aspects that we consider: life cycle cost, operation and maintenance considerations, permitting requirements, social impacts, environmental impacts, public health and safety issues, land acquisition, and product availability. Taking all those into consideration, our recommendations to the town were to complete 2 additional water supply wells at the rodeo grounds, and then replace the storage tank with a new 700,000 gallon pre-stressed concrete storage tank. As far as the tanks, comparing steel to concrete, concrete is just a little bit longer, better product, longer lasting, more durable. That tank could be buried, which a steel tank would not be able to be done. There's also some yearly operation maintenance associated with the steel tank that a concrete tank does not have.
What is the estimated life of that concrete tank?
Easily 50 years, probably more.
And the glass line?
Steel tank, they figure 40 years. I will tell you that there are concrete storage tanks that are 80 to 100 years old that are still in use in Montana. So basically, I think we've established that water supply and water storage are the 2 highest priorities. What we did here was kind of put together a priority list. I think that's something the town could revisit at any point. You know, maybe a backup generator is a higher priority than fire hydrants. You know, 3 through 9, I think, are kind of interchangeable and could be prioritized however the town sees fit. We just kind of took a stab at it, and that's the order that we came up with. So with the recommended improvement program established, then tried to look at you know, how the town could pay for it, and try to minimize the impacts to the system users. The Montana Department of Commerce has established what's called a target rate. They want the communities to be paying water and wastewater services at that target rate to be eligible for grants. The target rate is based on a percentage of the community's median household income. And the data they're using right now is the 2015 through 2019 American Communities Survey data. The percentages for a target rate are 1.4% if a system has a water system only, 0.9% of the median household income if a system has wastewater only, or if a community has wastewater system only, and then 2.3% for communities that have both a water and wastewater system. The published median household income in that survey for Ennis is $46,280. If you take 2.3% of that for a combined water and wastewater rate, that's $88.70 per month. That's the rate that the Department of Commerce wants the community to pay to be eligible for their grant programs. Right now, looking at system revenues and the number of users, the existing average residential monthly rate for water works out to about $38.50, wastewater $45.65, for a combined rate of $84.15. Right now, that's 95% of the target rate. So to be eligible for some of the grant programs, we'd have to be looking to raise rates just under $5 a month to hit that target rate. And if the town borrows money for a program or a project, that's going to take that rate over the target rate and make the town eligible for grant funding. Some of the state grant programs are available. The Montana Coal Endowment Program through the Montana Department of Commerce. Again, you must be at 100% target rate minimum to be eligible for up to $500,000 grant. If you're at 125% of target rate, you're eligible for $625,000. If you're at 150% of target rate, you're eligible for up to $750,000. That grant requires a dollar for dollar match. The match can be in the form of other grants, loans, or local funds. Applications are accepted in even years, then must go to the legislature for approval. So the next round of funding, those applications right now are due in May of this year. There's talk of moving that back to June, but nevertheless, it'll be the spring of 2024 that those applications will be due. They'll go to the legislature in the winter of 2025 for approval, and awards would be made late in the legislative process, with funding available no earlier than July of 2025. The DNRC has what's called a Renewable Resource Grant Program. That's designed for projects that will benefit a natural resource. Water is definitely a renewable resource that would benefited from any sort of project here that the town may want to do. They have grants available up to $125,000, no match requirement. Those applications are also accepted in even years, and so that would be this spring coming up here in a couple months. As far as loan programs, the one through the states, Montana Department of Environmental Quality State Revolving Fund, that's co-managed by the DEQ and the DNRC. Right now, their interest rate is 2.5%. The typical loan term is 20 years. You can go up to 30 years if the improvements have that life expectancy. Up to 75% loan forgiveness is possible, up to a maximum of $750,000. Basically, that percentage of the loan is just not repaid. They just forgive it. You must be at target rate to qualify for that loan forgiveness. There is another loan program, rural development. It has its own kind of peculiarities. Similar interest rate. They go to a 4-year maximum term. They do have some grant monies available. That would probably be a fallback option if, for some reason, if the SRF program didn't have the funding that community was looking for. Right now, they're waiting on their federal allocation for 2024. So they can't make any sort of commitments until they know what kind of funding they have to offer. But that program has been in use for a long time, and they usually have ample money to go around, particularly for water systems. It gets a little harder with wastewater systems because some of those projects are so expensive that a couple projects kind of gobble up what funding they have on the wastewater side. There's also American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, minimum grants. Madison County has already allocated $225,000 of its MAG funding to Ennis for water system improvements, and then the town itself $250,000 MAG funding for water system improvements. Now looking at scenario for the recommended project, new water supply wells, and the new storage tank, utilizing the MAG funding from both the county and the town, some town reserves, applying for an RGL grant of $125,000 with the town's target rate where it's at, with the proposed loan funding. The town would be eligible for an MSIP grant of only $500,000. We just can't get to that target rate, or 125% of target rate, without taking on quite a more loan to require raising the rates for that debt retirement. So the rest of the project would be funded through a combination of SRF loan and SRF loan forgiveness. Hope for a maximum of $750,000 in loan forgiveness. That would leave an SRF loan of just under $2.2 million for a total project cost of just over $4 million. That debt retirement on the SRF loan would require a rate increase of about $18 a month for that debt retirement. The other portion of the public hearing is, with all this PR process, we have to look at any environmental considerations that a project may result in. So we go through an environmental assessment. It's basically a public document that analyzes the complexity and seriousness of any environmental issues. We've completed the draft EA. It is available for review. All the recommended state and federal agencies were contacted. Public comments can be provided tonight, as fact, if the public has any comments on the environmental side of things there. We received comments from several of the agencies. To date, no comments were of any significant impact. So right now the decision is that the environmental assessment is acceptable, and that a more detailed environmental impact statement, the NIS, is not necessary. So that's kind of where we're at this point.
Yes. I got it off the commission report, didn't I? I will make sure it's in the commission report folder as well.
I did send that to you, didn't I, Ginger?
It's in there, isn't it?
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know if we didn't
I have
get
a
it
question.
that
So,
way.
Great West Engineering did a PER on the water system here about, I think it was probably about a year ago. So does that sound right?
We had our public hearing in February of 20.
It's the same report. It's just been evolving.
I was going to say,
As far as the only thing that's changed is the funding that the town has decided to go after.
Okay.
Originally, they weren't looking at going after the grant programs, but that has since changed. So that's, you're right. This handout is nearly identical to what we did almost a year ago
Yeah, it looked.
The only
pretty
thing is
familiar.
about the second to last page is what's changed.
Okay.
And we are going after grant funding, correct?
Yes.
Understanding, yes.
So with the last, page 10, 11, so the monthly rate increase of $18 a month puts us over the 100% of the target rate.
Yes.
So if we went up $4 more, 22 to $22 a month, that would put us at 120, put us above the 125% target. So $4 more would get us another 125,000. Is that right?
No, because your loan component would be reduced. If you were to do the same project that's presented right now, if you got more grant money, you would reduce your loan component. And so then you wouldn't need to raise your rate as much. They don't want you just raising a rate just to get more grant money. You have to justify it. Now, if you wanted to make the project bigger and by do another priority,
Yeah.
then yes, you
So
could.
if we raise rates $4 and we have another 125,000, then Eric has more money for infrastructure.
Yes.
Haven't you applied for, didn't you just recently bring up applying for a grant
Let's,
for
let's
meters?
do it in March.
Okay. So-
And yes, that would be over 20%.
And that's just for water meters though?
If they got approved, that's straight water meters.
Has it been completed? Like the grant's ready to go?
No.
Okay.
I think we need to do a public hearing,
Correct.
Okay.
and then I have the application number. I'd like to do that as soon as possible, just to get that out.
Agreed.
Any other questions from public on for Joel?
Joe,
Yes.
Well, or from
House
staff?
Bill 355, we're just thinking about using that. We got around 83,000. Put around 250 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with what you can do with that monies, or those monies, but
Yeah, structure, it's all,
yeah, then
yeah,
it'd probably be a good investment.
yeah.
Joel, can you speak to like what an average would be for communities? Like where are they at for their calculated rate or their, like what is the average, like 110% of the requirement or?
So how this target rate came to fruition many years ago is the Department of Commerce surveyed all the communities in Montana. What is your water rate? What is your wastewater rate? What is your garbage rate? And they utilized that data to then determine what the percentages should be to establish a community's target rate. So I would say most communities are at this target rate, if not in excess. I've got some communities that are 200% of their target rate, just because of their system needs and the improvements that they've made. I would say 125 to 150 is not out of the realm of what is what you would see if you started talking to other communities. And it's really a function of, you know, the communities that have a really low water rate or wastewater rate haven't done anything for 20 years. The ones that have really high rates have been proactive and are staying up to date on their infrastructure needs. So, I mean, that's kind of a roundabout answer, but I've seen both ends of the spectrum. I mean, I've got a rural water system that pays over $200 a month for water, and it's worth every penny to them because prior to them constructing a system, they had to haul water, and they'd say it was uncanny that you would run out of water in the middle of the night on the coldest night of the year and have to go get water. So that $200 a month is well worth it to them. And so it's all relative. I mean,
Sure.
yes, sir.
On page 4 of 11,
Table 3, the second column, estimated service population.
Mhm.
Is that the number of people in the town?
Yes.
That kind of service?
Yes.
I thought our population was already 1034 or 1084 in the last census.
Every census site you look at gives you a little bit different number. So it's, I mean, that's, the numbers I've seen recently are just over 900,000 or 900.
How many meters are there in town?
Almost 700, 640 something connections, so each of them are.
And how many vacant? I mean, there's a lot of vacant properties still too, or good bit,
That's
not a lot.
commercial also.
Yeah, that's commercial.
And it very well may be that the 1% projected growth is not, I mean, it's too conservative. It's not
There's not much.
keeping up with what's happening.
No.
I mean, you can just look around town and see that it's growing.
So when the water, when the rate goes up, say $18 a month, is that do towns they raise their base rate 18, like 9 and 9 for water and wastewater, or do they raise the per gallon price so that folks that are using more gallons?
It would have to be the water rate only because they have to be separate funds. And so if you're doing water system and taking on debt for a water system, that rate has to be entirely on the water system. How that rate is generated, I've seen communities put it all in the base rate because it all is. If there's no additional operation and maintenance costs, then it's really just debt retirement and it should be on the base rate. If there's projects that have additional operation and maintenance costs that are a function of how much water you use, then that rate might be a combination of base rate and the usage rate. That would be up to the town how they want to set that up.
Other questions of Joel? Anything from online? Nope. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll let you do official public comment on that. And if you have any regarding the environmental assessment as well. And here's a copy of it. And we'll make sure to post it on the website as well.
There's
Joel, I did have one more question.
Okay.
Can you speak to the old storage tank and as to why that is not any part of a viable part of the system? The abandoned one?
Oh, the old concrete one?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sit high enough. It's not, the elevation of that is not high enough to provide the pressures and flows that you need, particularly for fire protection. It sits, I have to go back and look, but it's 30 or 40 feet lower than the new tank, if I had to guess.
Perfect.
What's the location of that one again?
Antelope Meadows.
Oh, okay.
So, and if a loan is paid off early, there's no penalty against that.
Nope. No, I had one community that paid off their 20-year loan in like 10, 12 years.
Can the town sell that land for revenue purposes?
It has to go through all the process, but yeah, yes, we can.
So we have to actually disconnect that this spring at the well or at the old storage tank, and where it's our system, we have to have that disconnect. After that, it's just whatever we have to do here to get rid of it.
And secure a new portion or new.
Mhm.
Junior, can you send me a copy of that? Just email it.
The tank, I wouldn't, I don't know.
Sorry.
I mean, maybe fill it with dirt, but I really don't know.
What? The old tank?
Yeah.
As far as abandoning it? Yeah, I mean, you go in and just push the walls in and
Yeah,
fill the dirt hole in.
yeah. We got some dirt.
Eric, how many acres is?
I think it's 3 or 4. It's a nice chunk of land. No, if I bought it, I would use it. It'd be the coolest murder dungeon ever.
No, don't say that.
Say like a silo house, but murder dungeon works, yeah.
Not put that on one of the sales pitches for that.
Well, you got it. And this opportunity for giant. Nobody can see you. Perfect.
Swimming.
Pretty sure that's not far enough.
All right, any public comment? Once, you have to call for twice. And the last call for public comment. Anything from online for public comment regarding the February 2024 water PER. All right,
Somebody said above. I don't know what that means.
They need to go up to the microphone.
all right, seeing no other public comment from online, I'll let the commission discuss whether to adopt the current PER and seek the grant funding.
So for discussion's purposes, I'll make a motion to adopt it. Once we have a second, then we can discuss it.
I'll second.
All right, discussion, go for it.
What do you guys think?
Is it in this priority that they listed? Or is that what?
Is microphone?
Yeah.
Randy?
No.
John's.
In order for you to transcribe the minutes, we need your microphones on or you speak, please.
Yes, the funding is in the order of priorities, 1 and 2 being this funding cycle.
I thought we were maybe not gonna press the rodeo ground because it wasn't a great viable option. Is that, maybe I'm not remembering that correctly.
No, Bruce came in and did the hydrogeological study in 2022, and that's when we evaluated the second well portion. Because to buy property that has the water rights to it is really putting that out of a price range, and then securing more water rights on top of that. And where these wells are already kind of permitted into the process, this gets us a lot closer to an end goal with a cheaper budget than seeking anything else.
Not like that. Just don't have any land.
I guess one item I don't see in here that I've spoke with Colette about was securing additional property, because you have to keep the existing water tower in use while we assemble a new one. So that's a cost. It's not, I mean, it's,
The cost estimate includes some land acquisition
oh, really?
dollars, yes.
Okay,
Yes, we,
I am working on.
okay.
But yeah, we calculated part of that in there.
Nice.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so if this report is basically, it's it's a cut and paste of the previous one for the most part, right? At least that's the way I understood it, except for, I think you said the last page. So since a year has passed, all the dollar amounts in here, are they accurate? They're today's dollars.
They were projected to a couple years, a construction period a couple of years later than when those were established. They accounted for a couple of years of inflation.
Okay, so I guess where I'm going with this is when we actually get into it, then the actual cost, how much higher might it be than this? But you've already accounted for that, okay.
Any other discussion points?
I mean, something we have to do. It's a good plan. There's at least a start of how we're going to fund it, an idea and how we're going to fund it. At least the first couple priorities, and then, we can work the rest as we find money. Yeah, I mean.
And essentially the time frame, because if we don't do it now, then you're going to go wait until 2026 to apply. You're going to be looking at closer to 2030 before you start anything. And we've already patched the tank twice in 1 year.
And these grant applications are the ones we talked about last month, having Great West do the application for us, I believe.
Correct. That was the contract that you
And we have enough
approved.
time to get them.
Yes. And then on top of that, next month will be another hearing regarding MSEP, correct? As part of this process, if you approve tonight.
MSET was part, yeah.
Montana Coal Endowment Program, part of our funding for the project.
So, Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, storage tanks are out 2 years from the time you actually give we want to purchase one. That's how that works.
Right now, yes. So, in fact, we just met with the concrete tank company a couple weeks ago. Their 2024 is completely booked. Most of their 25 is booked. So they're looking out maybe the end of 2025 before they could start any new projects that they don't already have on their books. The steel tank is even worse because of the restrictions on some of this funding now, the Buy American, Pay American Act, especially with the ARPA and the SRF funding. There is only one company in the United States that can provide the glass lined steel tank, which is the only steel tank I would ever recommend to you. And they're not even bidding projects right now because they just can't do it. So one of the considerations under selection of alternative product availability, that went into part of the selection of the concrete tank.
And the concrete tank has more earthquake.
Oh, there's a
higher
lot of
rating.
benefits to it. It just comes with, you're paying a premium, but you're paying a premium for a reason because it stands up to the environment better. As Nikki mentioned, earthquakes. It can be buried, which is often a big thing, especially in a residential area. People don't want to look at water tanks, so if you bury it, all the better. It's just it's low maintenance, the longevity far exceeds the steel tank.
Last year, I tried finding rubber gaskets. Not a thing. For that tank.
Are we gonna bury it?
That is the overall plan.
It'll depend on what land availability is and whether the elevations work, whether we can bury it and keep the same pressures that we're looking for. I mean, there's a lot goes into it. And land availability is going to be a key factor in that.
And then keeping it like the elevation that he's talking about, we have to be really close to the same because of those high pressures that we have downtown. We start going higher and we're going to have some problems.
If we go much higher, we would be looking at a pressure reducing station, which to me doesn't make sense, but sometimes you have to do it. If there's only one location for a tank and it just results in pressures are too high, then you have to knock that pressure down before it hits the town. It's counterintuitive, but so if we can avoid that, great. But again, land availability is going to be what's going to drive this whole tank project. And whether the town has to pay real estate prices or pasture land prices could be significant.
So I guess when do we get on the list for drilling a new well, actually? I mean, obviously, once we get approved for money, but.
So right now, kind of the schedule that we're looking at is initiating design this summer using the ARPA funding that you have already through the county and the town. And then once we know whether the town is successful with its funding applications to the MSEP and the RRGL program in the spring of 2025, if everything looks like it's going to fall into place, then we would bid the project in spring 2025 and start construction in summer of 2025. So that would be the absolute soonest anything's going to happen on the ground. Because again, the MSEP and the RRGL funds won't be available until July of 2025.
And at best guess, if that went that smooth, how long would it take to complete that project after start date? A guesstimate. 6 months.
6 months, especially for the tank.
Ow, so, ow, ow. That's how I feel about it too.
The wells would be probably about a 4-month process, but the tank would be pushing 6 months.
So target rate would have to be met by spring of, or the end of 2025.
Can you say that again?
Target rate would have to be met by project completion. So when we go into the process of application, as long as we have a plan for creating that target rate to be met by the end of project completion, that's part of the acceptability. So, and we already kind of have been looking at a plan, but we didn't want to do it until summer when all the water users were kind of back in play, because it's a very in-depth process. While we love our public hearings, we also have to send mailers out to every single user. It's a lot more involved. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of had our time frame and what we want to do. So we'll go into work sessions on what our plan wants to be. Just like Brittany was asking the great questions, are we going to apply it all to base rate? Or are we going to do it for, usage? We'll have to form which way we want to do that and create that plan to be met by the end of 2025.
So we're talking about the ETA for a concrete tank. So they would start building at the end of 25. Earliest that their next tanks go into production is the end of 25, right? Is that correct?
Right now, they're booking for 2025 construction, yes. So it would be late.
Delivery in late 25?
Well, it doesn't come, they build it on site.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Basically with the concrete tank, what they do is they form the wall panels on site. They pour those, they actually pour them one on top of each other, and then they lift them all in place and something with the dome panels. And that's quite the process.
Fun to watch.
Yeah.
will we increase the rate all at once or? it'll
No,
just
that's
be-
what I'm saying is we can actually plan that over the next bit. So it's not like, hello, everybody, you just opened your bill and now it's $18 more starting this moment. We can increment it a little bit and decide how we're going to do it. If some of it's base rate, which makes sense, and some of it's because we have more users and so usage.
So there's two rate increases in here that I saw. There's a $5 target or $5 increase and an $18, I think, increase. You're talking about the $5 a month increase or the 18?
18 overall.
So you have to raise it at least 5 to get the target rate to be eligible for the grant programs.
So,
But with the loan that you would take out, you're going to actually end up raising it to 18. So you're going to be at like, if I remember right, 112 or 115% of target rate by the time you're said and done.
so the $5 increase is sooner rather than later and
Mhm.
get to the 18 by the time we.
Correct.
construct.
That's okay.
You wouldn't have to. You could, I mean, theoretically, you could do it all at the very end, but you don't have to be at target rate when you apply. You just have to show that at the end of the project, you will be above that target rate.
So yeah, we've been kicking around different models. We can pick and choose which way is going to be work for everybody. Hold the public hearings. I mean, I have concerns in that and too much as we don't have that state assistance program for low income anymore. So there's still those people that we have to think about that they're already struggling right now. And people are paying their water bill for them, and you know, we go around and try and figure that out, but there's no state program for it anymore. And every bit of investigation that I've done is basically said, like, as a town, you don't touch that, you know, create a forgiveness program. No town has done it. It's kind of a no touchy area.
But that program, we don't know that it won't be available in 25, 20, 23, 24, it's not. But maybe 24, 20, we don't know.
It's probably just something we shouldn't even rely on. though.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's a good program, but it doesn't affect a lot of our payers.
No.
Less than a dozen.
So, any other questions, discussion, or can I call it? Oh.
One of my biggest, just keep in mind about all this tank talk. It was never a thing until a year or two ago. You know, what has happened in the last 2 years is why we're having this talk. That's what this gentleman was asking. Why aren't we taking care of this? Why aren't we spending money on this? That's because of what has happened, not, you know, it's just something to keep important when we talk about tank. Because of the leaks we've had since, and it's just getting more. There's cracks along the foundation, which scare me more than the leaks. I know we've all heard about the golf course. They have to get theirs replaced. It's leaning, same thing. If that tank just keeps leaking, it's just gonna keep going.
Definitely a priority.
All right. Corey, you said one other thing, or you're?
How many cubic feet of concrete go into this? I'm just curious from like a bidding standpoint. We've had subdivisions like have to haul in, well, everybody has to haul in asphalt from Bozeman, basically. Is it like a conversation to be had, just thinking forward about like having one of these concrete plants step up their production?
So it'll be up to the tank supplier to decide where they want to pull their concrete from.
Okay.
It's not only quantity availability, but quality. And oftentimes we find that some of the local plants can't provide the quality of concrete product that they need for their tanks. But they do all that research, they sort that out themselves, and if they gotta bring it in from Bozeman, they'll factor that into their bid.
All right. No other discussion. I'm going to call the vote. Craig, start with you.
Aye.
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 I,
All right. Motion carries to accept the water preliminary engineering report and proceed with grant funding. We'll get to see Joel again. Do we get to see you next month too?
Probably.
Probably. Thank you very
That
much
will
for.
be hopefully a lot shorter.
All right. And we'll follow up on the drawdown and the updated information because I know Eric did a one night last March. I think it was last March.
Something did happen in the middle of it, but I remember us talking.
I know we talked about doing it, and
I
I think you had some sort of an emergency or something.
Done and you wanted to read something happened.
hit a water main break.
It was that.
That's what it was.
It was that.
Correct. So yeah, we had one day of it and then that happened.
That'd be awesome.
I believe it was. Like 9 inches. I remember.
So about half of what it was previously.
You know, I brought in leak detectors every other year. This would be our upcoming every other year. But I think got a lot of other stuff. You know, you call it leak detector and you're tied up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody need a quick stretch? Yoga positions before the next half?
I'm gonna stretch you right on out of here.
All right. Have a safe trip back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Did you get enough signatures?
It's not us, enough signatures. It's any other comments. And we'll see him again next month. So we can always add comment there too. Okay, I just. Huh?
Some great stuff.
Probably be sheepskin.
Probably.
Give my water bill and I get a sucker. Only 3 department heads tonight.
I don't see all of them handy.
Yeah. I'll tell you too. So he called me today and was talking to me about the lines plan. And I thought, I don't know how to explain it very good because I'm not, I don't know, I'm on the library board and last year they made a change to insurance policies.
Brittany, do you want me to
But
make a copy of that?
they have volunteers.
Yeah.
And so I called NMIA, but they said since it's a because I know Dave was struggling with part 27, I think.
We've talked about it. He's fine with it the day
Oh,
before.
was he?
Yeah.
Yeah, the indemnification thing, I think he was. Or maybe he wasn't putting up with some lines or directions. I was just looking at something.
That's the problem, guys. Who do you need to negotiate? The whole thing, or who?
Should be one person.
It
My
should be.
story, I shot that.
Because now, I negotiate with these two.
He's like straight out.
Yeah.
So, he agreed.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, but he did say 16 was taken out or something?
Yeah, we took 16 out. Well, we took, on the original, we took 16 out and then we.
Was it about jurisdiction though? Or like where the court was?
I mean, he was fine on that one too. You didn't like that one?
No, he said he was under the understanding that that portion was supposed to be taken out. And I don't think he didn't have to do it for
I know better, right?
So I was like reading over it and trying to communicate with him.
All my stuff is, I'm reading from a teleprompter.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking, because if we, with the library. And
I wish I
so
had.
they're covered up for like, public years and stuff like that, so that means.
I've been on the news a few times and I'm like, cheaters?
I thought maybe it would work, and then like called him on my and like,
So.
which.
I don't know what seat you had.
Good for you though, 'cause you're much more intelligent than I am, 'cause I don't even know.
Oh, well, I had to. No, but I figured we better wait for him.
And thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
But I think somebody else is in the bathrooms or the restroom as well. So we'll wait for a second. That was a good break. Let's start. We don't, somebody's in the bathroom. It'll be okay.
They'll be fine.
All right, we're gonna get going again. So maybe 10. No. All right, we're opening the meeting at 7:37 with the roll call of council. Mr. Abernathy,
Here.
Mr. Way,
Here.
Here.
all right, let's go for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is the approval of the January 11th meeting minutes.
They include that update, correct?
Pardon me?
They include the, never mind. We tied out on that, so we're good.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the January 11 meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All right. Then.
Aye, yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Meeting approval of January 11th meeting carries. Now we're gonna try this whole thing so I'm out of sync. Karen. And then you can.
Hi, everybody. Karen Ketchu, Library Director. You have my written report, I believe, in your packet. I guess, mostly what I have are questions for you tonight instead of reporting to you. Also, in your commission packet, you should have a working draft of our strategic plan. If you have any questions for me or for the library board in the future, please contact me and let us know. We'll be working on action plans with the staff to achieve some of the goals that we've outlined in the plan. So one of my questions, and I'm going to follow my notes here. So yes.
What do you mean by working draft, I guess?
So working draft is, this is a working document.
Okay.
If we find in 6 months that something needs to be changed, we'll address that.
Okay.
It is not set in stone.
And then it's just voted on by the library board as an adoption?
Yes, and they have adopted it. Yeah. That's what I mean by a working draft. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I don't know, time wishes together for me now. I don't know if it was last month or the month before I'd requested to talk about a light and some parking spaces, but I'm actually retracting those requests because I'll keep them in mind. I just think they are requests that need to be looked at holistically and during the planning process, not ticked off one item at a time. So I will keep it in mind and I will bring it up again when the time is appropriate. And my question for you is, you have my report that I submit in your packets every month, but what I'm looking for you, we have Commissioner Way, if you have any questions about the library, or if any of you, if there's information that you would like from me, I'd like you to think about that. You know what? I'm a bit of a creature of habit and how I dish the same information out to you every month, try to give you important information about the library. But what do you need to know from me? What's important for you to know? So if you have an answer tonight, great. But if you don't, I'll follow up with you. Just what you want from me each month. Thanks. Any questions for me?
Were there enough cookies the other night, or do I need to plan more for next time?
No, there were enough cookies. That's right. Reimagining rural. So I did put that in my report. But I don't know if you want to address it in your commissioner comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And thanks to those of you that came the other night. Commissioners Hardy and Abernathy were present. We had 35 people turn out for the program, which is pretty darn good for something like for a program like that. The next one I think will be even better. She's a great speaker and I'm looking forward to it. And I'll send out a reminder based on the sign up and mailing list that we collected.
What is the next one addressing?
The next one I think is titled New Ways to Get Things Done in Small Towns. Monday night at the library, this coming Monday at 6 p.m.
And then the last one is
2 weeks after that.
2 weeks after that.
Yes.
20.
Yes, and it will be in the events section in the Madisonian. I will post it on social, put it on our website, the library. If you want me to email you, if you want me to put you on a mailing list, I can. Perfect. Yeah. Any other questions for me? All right. Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to law enforcement. John couldn't be here tonight, and then I'll have him here for March. But he said if we had anything, Ginger could contact him with questions. Public Works. You want to go up, Eric?
Hi. So I have nothing further to add than what's in my report right now. I know there's lots of questions out of that report though. So let it rip.
Where are you thinking of putting an office?
In the back, on the side of the building in the back.
Okay. Is that where the old one, what were the previous?
Pretty much,
ones?
but around the corner of it, it's pretty much the same area. Yes.
But instead of, you can see it right now, it'll actually be directly behind the building,
Oh, got it.
kind of.
Where the yard is.
Yeah. Well,
With that building to get tore down, and there'll be access for, you know, I do get lots of visitors throughout the day.
Eric, are you putting access from the outside and from inside the shop?
I'm gonna have the inside door framed in because there's so many tools. That's where all our tools are stored. I'm gonna frame it in for now and just cover it back up. That's my thoughts.
But futuristically,
Yeah.
it could have a
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, but the framing will already be there. That way, when we do get some clutter cleared out and upgraded a little bit, we'll put the door in. And
how many square feet are you planning for? Offhand.
let's see.
Yeah.
So it averages out to, what's it, 144 square foot? Oh,
What's the dimension?
12 by, or 14 by 28.
Oh, yeah.
So,
392 square.
right. That's probably twice of what I did have, which would be amazing. Map storage, everything. It was really cluttered in that place before to begin with. But I would like to get that gone as soon as we can with the approval.
Do you have the like an estimate on the pump fix or the?
No, I don't. He's going to tear that. So,
We just don't know how bad it is.
so yesterday, well, I say Monday, we switched our blower motors. We have two blower motors which control our aeration in our lagoon. Two big motors. And one's kind of been acting a little wonky for about a year now. And when we changed oil in it and switched it over to that one, you definitely could hear the bearings grinding in it. So we shut it down. And yesterday we tore that motor out and took it to Bozeman. It's going to be shipped to Billings to get rebuilt and asked to come back. But it might be a while until he tears into that motor. We won't know how long it'll be
Or how much?
or how much.
And you can operate with one?
We can. We have two. We switch them back and forth when at our monthly or hourly oil change intervals. We switch them over.
When you do receive that quote, where will that money come out of? Will it come out of Public Works or
Sewer.
general fund? Sewer.
Come out of the sewer fund. That's, I put extra in there for just this. You know, I do balloon some of those line items up. This is why. But this is not the last you're going to hear about the lagoon this summer. This is my project for the summer. We got a lot of work to do out there.
Is the other motor of the same age? Should we plan
Yeah.
on, like, when this one comes back, like rebuilding the other one?
Depending on how bad this one is on the inside, yeah, maybe. But it actually sounds pretty good. It's running fine. That motor has always ran cooler. So the heat in that building is also an issue because it gets up around 140 degrees in there in the summertime. And that's bad on your bearings. It's just hard on them. And so I'm going to be looking into getting the ventilation system working the way it should be. And we also have a valve to replace out there. We got a lot of work to do out there this summer. So if you want to find me this summer, that's probably where we'll be. I'm hoping within 9 weeks that motor's back. That's a long estimate. So they are old. You know, finding parts for the older stuff is getting harder and harder to do.
So it looks like the flooring's going well. Are you painting it or epoxying it or what is it?
Because of the way it was done, we're just gonna paint it. I'm gonna pressure wash, paint it, and seal it. We started trying to sand it. Yeah,
Sandblast it? Can you
no
do that?
sanding it. It
Can you
was,
sandblast it? Or like, is that an option?
yeah. All of that's, yeah, you know,
Is it worth it though?
it's a lot of money. We don't have a lot in that extra right now at all. As it is, us doing this floor is probably gonna put us right there. But we're gonna do a good job of it. And I think if we seal it 2 or 3 times after, I don't know. If that doesn't work, then yeah, it's gonna have to be completely stripped down.
One last question, the quotes for your office, you have a couple of quotes.
I do.
Who are they from? I don't know if you
4050 and Red Bullet.
Are they both local?
They are both local. That's how I work, if I can.
What do you have to fix at the dike?
The dike.
So the repair that was made a few years back is what was the biggest flooding this year. I don't think it would, I think we should address that. And there are 2 other spots down further. And also the Lions Club would like to put rocks in a certain spot that is getting bashed by the big ice chunks. And we are working with the Conservation District to get this permit going. I'm actually, instead of doing this once a year, I'm trying to get a 10-year maintenance permit for this dike, which is really hard to get, but being that our lagoon is behind this park, it's a good possibility. So I do have to attend that meeting the 23rd and talk to the commission there about that. But I mean, if we had a maintenance permit, that'd be amazing. You know, there's 6 different entities to be permitted, depending on what kind of work you're gonna be doing around a river. And I would love to make it higher too, at some point, taller, wider. Something we didn't have to fix every year.
One day I want to go for a tour because I don't even know what the dike is.
Yeah, no, you should. It's not, you know, it's not where we have to tear it out or nothing, but if we have the ability to just work on it when we need to, because timing is hard. Because you don't want to go in the summer, you'll ruin the path or the grass. You know, you want to do it when the ground's still hard. And who knows when that's going to be this year, you know. What? Say it. Say it.
I'm
It's
always
okay.
the engineering question, so I don't even know who to begin to ask. Like, if you change the dimensions of the dike, what does that do to farther down? I don't know. When was it done? 70? The major part was done. Do you remember, Ginger?
95. Right?
90? When was the major portion of the dike, like the big modification done? It's I want to say it was early 70s. And then I always wonder what you change downstream if you do a major modification, but that would probably be a both side. Well, I wouldn't do the other side, but Because it was extended from where it was, because before it could have.
You know, that dike takes a lot of damage every year. I mean, you know, in the last 2 years, it's shown it takes a pretty big hit right there on that corner.
All right, so I'll be with you the 23rd to go to the conservation district.
He'll also have to meet with them as soon as they call me and do a site visit with them, which will be before this hearing. So,
okay,
you're more than welcome to be there for that too.
Let me know.
So I kind of, in a way, took back the original permit I put in for this year to fix it, to try and get this 10-year permit. It takes a long time to get. It takes a whole, and it takes 6, 7 different people you got to talk to, especially when it comes to actually putting stuff in the water. Then it really gets interesting, you know.
All right, any other questions for Eric?
Is that, so are you going to be speaking with Colin from the conservation district?
Yeah.
And just him, or is there going to be an engineer involved?
I think when the repairs actually get done, maybe this time, maybe we should get somebody in there to
Assess that.
But if you can find an engineer that knows anything about dikes, let me know. I have asked. I'm all for it.
Oh, that one's such a, your guess is as good as mine, where the river's gonna go and when.
You know, and
predictable.
honestly, to keep the cost down, if we had just the ability to use the outsourced materials like before and everybody team up like they did it, if we had a maintenance permit, it's pretty much the best thing for that part, really.
I agree. Definitely worth the extra effort to do the 10-year maintenance rather than just, maybe this year won't be a bad year, or maybe it will, and
Well,
do
and
the permit again.
again, the thing is, like, you don't want to ruin the Lions Club's path. You don't want to tear, you know, I mean, you're going to have equipment in there, not a truck, you know.
All right, anything else for Eric?
No.
All right.
Call me anytime. Any questions?
Zoning, you got Susie's as a written. She's out sick this evening. I think she said she was
I'm
going to try.
online though, Nikki.
Yeah. So if you have any questions,
Can you-
she's there.
Yeah,
I can
I'm
hear
here.
you.
Is it just the zoning 2023 assessment? That's all we got?
Yes, and the court for 2023.
I have a dumb question. What is CUP in your list?
Conditional use permit.
Oh, okay.
We had to approve those.
So everything on my list went down from 2022. The numbers are down for 2023, with the exception of fence permits. There was more fence permits in 2023. Multifamily went down considerably. Zone sites for 2023 was 23 compared to 27 in 2022. So it did slow down a tiny bit.
Can you put a comparison one down together with both years so that we
Sure.
can kind of see where it's trending? It'll be interesting to see with our 1% calculated growth, how that's, if it's.
Maybe just a rolling 5-year trend, so every year we see it for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Be sure handy.
Yeah, I don't have the data prior to when I took over, but I do have it since I have. I mean, I suppose it could be obtained, but it would be a time-consuming project.
Another stupid question for the courts. What is the 45? What does that mean?
It's a 45 code, so it's not a traffic, so it's probably a disorderly conduct or theft or anything that would require like fingerprints. Is a 45 code. DUI, some of them.
Well, there's a DUI on there, so I was just wondering what the other ones were.
Yeah, that's a driving DUI.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there's one variance. Is the variance the committee? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Huh?
The zoning board of adjustments.
The zoning. Oh, it has not been submitted. Okay, but I'm just curious if the zoning board of adjustments is up and running.
We have to make appointments. So we have to put out.
Yeah,
for
so the variance would have gone before the zoning board of adjustments. And I actually think, trying to think really hard as to what it was. I'll have to look back through.
They have to request it.
It might be the school.
It was the school. That's the only zoning, that was the only variance granted this year.
Yeah,
Was
it was
you're
the school.
talking about an existing one.
Yeah, from her report, the school was the only,
Okay.
it was the
I
duplex.
thought these were on the docket. So
The
they're,
other one was
No.
the storage units on the other side of Madison. There were two.
I couldn't hear what she said, but if
Susie, were there two? Because Maria's thinking that there was the variance for the duplex for the school and then also for storage units by the Madisonian as well. Or,
I think that one started at the end of 2022, but I will double check for sure.
okay. Perfect, thank you. And then if we get our comparison, we'll start looking for trends.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
You have to turn your mic on, Ginger.
I'm gonna echo Karen. I mean, you see pretty much the same thing for me every month, but with a few variations. But that's what I do day in and day out. Any questions on what you've got?
I just want to say congratulations on the last bullet on there. I think that was a new one, right?
That is. Yes. And getting all the 1099s and all of that out and filed on time.
And last month we said that we thought audit was February. We were wrong.
It doesn't start until April 1. So any questions or, and again, feel free to stop in, at any time if something comes up, or give me a call or email or whatever. I'll be happy to answer anything that I can.
Maria, you got anything additional? Nothing exciting. All right, moving on to legal. Go ahead, James.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so we received the public records documents from the sheriff's office in Madison County. I want to thank Eric, our Public Works Director, I believe he drove over the hill to retrieve those documents. So it's over a ream of paper, and I think it was only loaded up into the database yesterday or the day before. Obviously, I've not had opportunity to read through all of those documents, so I'm not even going to offer any advice or opinion as to what's the contents are in there. Then we have, I believe, we've successfully concluded, and Mayor Nikki deserves a lot of credit on this, the Lions Park agreement, and that's on your agenda coming up under scheduled matters. I received a Montana Department of Transportation sidewalk maintenance improvement agreement, and that's standard, pretty much a standard form agreement. Only received that yesterday, so again, it's fairly standard. Basically, the Department of Transportation will make sidewalk improvements in relation to the new Madison Food building there, and then after the sidewalks are improved, the town is responsible for maintaining those sidewalks. That's essentially what that agreement is. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that, and I'm not aware if all of the commissioners get these emails, but these are the emails from MMIA and the Montana League of Cities and Towns. So if you do receive those, then you're aware of, all the training that's coming up and the different opportunities out there to meet and mingle with other commissioners, mayors, and public officials, and get your mandatory training and information about local government. Other than that, just continuing to process, all the cases in justice court as they come in. And whenever something's referred to as a Title 45 code means that it's a criminal case as opposed to a traffic case. Now in Montana, everything that's charged, even a misdemeanor, is considered a crime, but as opposed to, your traffic, careless, reckless, DUI, those are your motor vehicle crimes. And then you have your Title 45 crimes, as Susie was explaining. Those are your PFMAs, disorderly conduct, assault, theft, forgery, and those types of things. So that's about what we have here. I also see that you have on your agenda, an advisory committee for the sheriff's MOU, and it's probably a good and appropriate thing. I mean, knowing that we have over a ream of paper to go through. So looking forward to seeing how that all works out. And if you have any questions for me, just go ahead.
Thank you. Any other questions for James? All right, moving on to claims then.
Move to approve. Second.
Any questions? All right, if there's no questions, discussion, then I'll call a vote. I think we're at Thankins.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. No, now it's all out of order. Public comment on non-agenda items, if you please. Step to the mic. Second call for public comment on non-agenda items. Anything from online regarding items not on the agenda? All right, seeing no public comment on non-agenda items, we will move on to unfinished business, which I left blank, but somewhere in the back of your mind, remember that we had the panhandling thing, and I need to know if we're going to, what you want to do with that. So thought process back of your mind thing to it. That's kind of there, but not. So come in and talk to me on thoughts. And on to scheduled matters. So, Lions Club agreement. I have to thank Mr. Way for the immense amount of effort and awesomeness that he put into putting this together and helping out. I really, really appreciate it. So, with all of it, I guess the one big caveat was the insurance at the end. So to be clear in how that works. So liability for state statute for municipality for us to be held to is the 1.5. For liability, 750,000 per occurrence. So MMIA was contacted to say like, hey, this is interesting that no place provides 1.5. It is either $1 million liability or 2 million liability, which they acknowledged. Nobody does 1.5. So I don't know why that's the state statute. That's my new weird question in the universe. So then MMIA then said that at that point, you have to assess how much liability, are they a high risk or a low risk? If they're low risk, then you can accept one and understand that there's a little bit of a gap there and that MMIA is still there as long as we do our due diligence in helping with training and identifying hazards and being involved in the process, that they're still going to help us even up to the 1.5. So that was their overall. Yes, they prefer over, but you can evaluate. There's a lot more difference in a high risk event than regular maintenance. And the Lions Club has proven without any doubt that they are a very low risk factor. So that's why we agreed that the 1 is perfectly acceptable, because over all the years, we haven't had any issue of a claim. So it's perfectly acceptable in my mind. That's why it's in the contract that way, to have it at the 1, because they have shown through their actions that they are a low risk.
Now, for the record, we've negotiated this, the president of the Lions Club, Mr. Haney, and I have negotiated this contract. We went through about 4 or 5 different variations till we got to this one. And we, according to about 3 days ago, we were both happy with this one. But what I would assume is that has to happen is the Lions Club has to approve it. Their general membership or their board of directors has to approve it, and there might be some hangups in that. So my personal recommendation is let's approve it as a council as written. If they don't approve it and have an issue with it, then we'll get it back next month and we'll negotiate with them again and try to work it out. I think they want to do it. We want them to do it. I mean, you just got to get to the middle somewhere. And so, yeah, I mean, as of the end of last week, both Dave and I were happy with what we had here. But, the whole Lions board has got to approve it, and who knows how that goes as a general rule.
Do you want me to speak to the timeline on the Lions?
Yeah, the 22nd is your meeting, right?
No.
You are.
Okay. No, sir. On the 28th is our general meeting. Our board will meet sometime before the general meeting on the 28th at 7. So if the board approves it, then we take it to the general meeting. Should be approved by the 28th in theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, my recommendation is let's approve it as a board, and then if they have some problems with it, we'll get it back next month and we'll work through any little issues, but this has been long enough. Let's just get this damn thing done.
I like it. Will the amended version come back to us?
Yeah, if we have to amend it, it'll come back to us. And yeah, it's unfortunate that, the meetings don't line up better, ours and theirs, and we can, but yeah, we'll get it done one way or the other. I can guarantee you that.
Nikki, you could do a second approval as amended.
Yeah, yeah, we'll just approve the amendments or whatever it is. Down the road. All right, so I move to approve the Lions Club contract and send it over to the Lions Club.
I second that.
Any other questions on it?
I guess I have a couple questions on the terminology. Is it an agreement or is it a license?
It's just an agreement. When we boil this down, they've always done it. They gave us the property. They want to do it. They want to do this and we want them to.
Yeah.
So let's just agree on how to do it.
And if you do it this way instead of a lease,
Yeah.
you don't have to go through 2 public hearings to do a process, which would make it even longer and more drawn out. And then any kind of amendment like that would have to go through another 2 hearings, and you have to make sure they're posted. So that puts it a whole 4-month process every time there's an amendment, like, hey, this didn't work out. Let's try it this way. So. Any other discussion?
I guess I just have a random question, for the liability portion, what about the gazebo park and Sandy's Park? What is that covered under?
So.
Because our public works maintain that, right?
Correct. So that's part of the property, the town property, and under our liability program through MMIA. So when if you have another group managing, you have them name you as well on their insurance. And it's the same thing we do with all of our user agreements and special events, which I think after this we need to look at, because all of those are 1 million as the paperwork. So I think we should establish a policy for what is acceptable for 1 million and what is really should be at the 2, what is classified as high risk and should have the 2, to make it very clear. And a policy for that instead of hey, well, just because we're friends and today 1 million's the deal. But we all know that certain events are higher risk, whatever it may be. Kind of have to classify those. Talk to MMIA, they have a list of higher risk events and what they recommend having the full 2, even though 1.5 is it. All right, any other discussion on this?
I guess I just have a random weird question. So for tap into Ennis that's held at Lions Club Park, does the chamber have insurance?
Mm-hmm, they do.
Okay.
They always do. Any outside of the normal things that happen at the park.
And every vendor has insurance as well.
Yeah, so technically there's a lot of
Layers of it.
You're
Okay.
never
But all
gonna
of them.
protect yourself 100% with insurance.
Right.
You can't buy enough insurance to ever protect for everything. You just gotta have a standard on what you feel is acceptable, an acceptable amount of risk, or and then pay your premiums and hope for the best.
But I think it'd be clear for where I administer the user agreements, if there was a clear policy for what it is instead of, because then it would, as it is, it kind of just says 1 million and that's, but we typically do ask for, if there's alcohol at an event, there's a special portion that you can buy as an addition to most policies, and that we require that they have that. But that's really not written anywhere. So it needs to be.
I like that.
All right, any other discussion on the Lions Club? agreement. All right, gonna call it.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John, for doing that.
It's not done yet. We're only halfway there. We're only halfway there.
It was, and I appreciate you taking the motivation to do it.
Karina, do you want?
Still also kind of
anybody there at the
concerned
board
how
meeting?
we were still told that we are not able to negotiate, but I appreciate what you've done.
Okay. It's great.
All right, moving on to resolution 596, 2024, resolution of the town of Ennis calling for election on the question, conducting a local government review and establishing a study commission to do so. All right, so I'll give the intro to all of this fun that happens. So in the next 2-year cycle for 2026, every 10 years, the state requires that every incorporated town go through local government review, or ask the voters if they would like to go through local government review. And that's not to be confused with an evaluation of how good or bad we're doing our jobs right now, but just a review of our form, power, and plan of government. How we're established as currently, we have our 5 council and a mayor. Do you do that, or there's other options where the mayor is elected from the council, like in Virginia City? There is.
Yeah, but we're a charter.
We're a charter form. There's charter and non-charter, and then there's 5 different categories of how you can organize this kind of thing, and then how much power each parts have. So that is what a local government review is. It's your one big chance in 10 years to say, does this system still fit today? And will it continue to fit for the next 10 years? But we have to put it to the voters first on whether or not they even want to do it, or if they're like, yeah, no, let's not even go through that. And as part of that, we have to say how many people we're going to put to the committee. You can have anywhere from 3 to 5. I chose 5 because I've noticed that smaller groups, they're easier to find. If that planning board was 7, it was a stretch. So I chose 3. And then you have to establish a budget for that whole process and what you think you're going to, if the voters say yes to it, the budget that's required to do that whole review. So I gave in your packet a breakdown of costs for the budget so that on the resolution you knew where that 11,000 came from. And then how kind of I calculated those numbers. Does that all make sense? Taking a stab at stuff, because there's a couple open questions in there as to mostly election costs. And I did contact Paula, and she said that's still a best guess. The county was going to be in discussion about that over the next couple weeks, because the county will also go through this review at the same time, and all incorporated towns. So Virginia City's going to have to do this, Sheridan will have to do this, Twin will have to do this. So we will all be on the same ballot in our own way that the county will send out. So how we're going to split those costs for this undertaking.
Can you speak a little bit as to your personal experience as mayor? Is it too much for one person?
I think that's what the committee is for.
Okay.
What you really do is they delve into different plans and where it's at.
You'll be interviewed.
Yeah, they go through an interview process and public hearings and outreach and
Every
Commissioner.
oh, just commissioners, not.
No, she'll have it too.
No, but like residents, will residents go?
residents, employees, there's a whole process.
Now, let me ask you real quick. I think you've done a great job on the budget and trying to account for that. But this committee, so there's 3 members from this group here.
No.
And, okay, so So
They
walk me
must
through
be
that.
elected. So if everybody chooses to actually go through local government reviews, which
Yeah.
is the first question that we have to pose,
Yes.
then you have to elect a commission.
Who elects the commission?
Who, yeah.
I haven't been through this one yet.
How do,
If it's a,
I'm like,
Well, wasn't someone contracted to do this?
no,
no,
It was
it,
three, we had
it was
three.
Gail and
Shea Barker,
Gail Shebarker.
Sharon Christensen.
Yeah,
And-
Sharon Christensen.
and Steve.
he's the
That's
one
right.
that Did all of the survey work. Yes. I think it goes to election and then you ask people for
I'm-
letters of interest, just like.
what I was getting from the file was it's by election of the people. Like,
So
it's not
we-
by appointment of us.
so then we need two election, I'm kind of confused. So we put this on and everybody says, yes, do this.
Yes or no?
Then we gotta have another election to elect the people on the
So-
committee?
What will happen is the June
Yeah.
will have yes or no to it.
Mhm.
And then in November, you will have your candidates.
Okay.
And then that's why in December of this year, they, MSU has their training program set up for those candidates.
Okay.
So this is also MSU trying to keep us on the right timeline so that we're not pushing the election administrator at the last minute being like, oh, by the way, can you put this?
So,
So we have to make sure that it's all ready for their approval and
so this will be June of this year, this first election, and then November for the candidates.
correct. If they choose to do it.
And how long does that review take?
It's a 1-year review
So starting in January of next year.
of 2025, and then it's completed by 2026. So that's why this overall budget, if you look at it, is 24 through 26. So we'll break this into our budget, and I had some in general fund accounted from this because we talked about this in Livingston in like April, May. So part of our current budget has some reflection of these numbers, which was, I think I ballparked some of the election costs, not knowing if we would need those or not. So I think in general fund, we put about 3. Now that's the total that they spent last time was right around 3,000.
But it didn't go anywhere, right? It got voted down, right? Or no?
Well, they went through the whole local government review last time, 10 years ago. Yeah. And that's where the numbers came from. And then they had an administrative assistant, Ellen Bihar was hired on. And so she helped with some of the copy print, put together the final reports. You have to have public hearings and reports and everything else. It's a very systematic approach because everybody does it. Everybody in the state of Montana will be having the same amount of fun. From Great Falls to,
So even though it's mandatory to put this out, we still need a vote?
well, it's mostly like, do you approve of the 3 people that we put together, the number 3, which I chose honestly for the small amount, and hotels are a lot more expensive in 2025 and 26 than they were in 2016, as is everything else. So I thought the less people at the 3 is also most cost effective in the fact that I don't know where the trainings and stuff are going to be. They haven't posted that yet, so I didn't know to calculate for 1 night of hotel or 2 nights. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And the meals there, so it's kind of this, it's very hard to make a budget
How
on
many
that
did
many unknown.
3 last time.
Yep, 3 last time.
All right. This is John Way for the record. I move to approve resolution 596-2024-A, I think is what it is.
I second that. Corey Hardy.
And you're comfortable with the budget. I mean,
Yeah.
after saying it was 3,000 and now have 11,000 budgeted
Do we
over a
have to
10-year period, that's quite the increase.
And if
But
they don't use all 11,000, it's not like it goes away, right?
no, anything that's not used goes back into general fund per Montana code.
And since it's general fund, there's no amendment, budget amendment needed.
No, I already had it actually kind of the initial part in there. It's not the whole 11,000 this year, it's over that period. So we will know more even in June with election costs and stuff if we need to adjust that into the budget and where it's going to be. And by then we should know where the December conference is going to be, which is going to be the big initial training that's put on, which is a 1 day. So everything you need to know about being a committee member for local government review in 1 day. That's why I also budgeted it second day in case that's a lot to absorb for such an important 10-year cycle. So I budgeted for a half day for MSU to come back in should that committee choose or feel that that was too much or something worked out where part of them couldn't go or something like that. So that's how I budgeted that in.
And once this committee's formed, do they report to anybody at the town, or are they pretty much just on their own, just go do this thing?
I would hope we have them come back and report. It's an opportunity to grow truly, you know, like get some feedback, like once every 10 years on what we need to do to improve operations.
Can it be a commissioner, or is that a conflict?
You cannot have a commissioner on it. It
No.
can't be an elected official.
Okay.
Very interesting, but I think they're just trying to keep it as impartial of a view without tainting it. It's more that you are in charge of information gathering and reporting, not promoting this way of life versus the other.
But there should be checks and balances for, yeah.
We just have to set there. MSU has a timeline for them and an assistance. So I have kind of every faith that with them leading the kind of charge and training, because everybody's going to be kind of on the same timeline. This is when you need to have your questions in, kind of started. They've set really good timelines all the way through, and they have now on MSU's site, there is a whole local government review quick link, and it's got frequently asked questions, kind of their timeline. They're updating it all the time. The budget that I saw in April, May, June, or whatever in Livingston did not look like this at all. It was closer for 7,000 as a total for our size town. And you looked at it right now, and they revised it in September, and it was 17,000. And I thought 17,000 was a bit much, and that's why I went back through and recalculated based on the number of hours Ellen put in. That was the biggest difference, was they had 300 hours budgeted at $20 an hour for their assistant. And then I took Ellen's total hours in 2016, which was 45 and some, and then doubled it and then raised it to 20 versus the 1250 we spent then. Does that make sense?
Sounds reasonable. You're probably going to use almost all of it by the time this comes around.
The 300?
No, I'm thinking of the overall budget, right?
Oh,
The 11K.
11,000.
You'll probably use most of it.
So Nikki, are the 3 elected coming from the town of Ennis?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then if Madison's doing this as well, they're gonna be polling for people throughout Madison, which means someone might be running. Could someone run for both? I don't know why they want to, but could somebody?
I have not looked at that. That is a new hypothetical I hadn't looked at.
So these 3 people are from the
Right.
town,
Yes.
live within the town.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask one more stupid question?
There's not stupid questions.
Elected official, so a planning board person could request to be
Yes.
or apply.
Yes.
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
They're appointed.
So when we're out searching for these 3 individuals, what should we be looking for? All of these.
Are we searching?
Well, yeah.
Nope.
Sure, we sure.
Advertising.
Yeah,
paid
yeah,
for
right,
it.
right.
Right.
Mhm.
People that
We
were
had
interested.
three come in with, that were interested, and it was a three-person committee, so. And that's something I was just trying to read in there and find out is if you have three that file for it and you have three positions, then do you have to go to election, much like we did here?
Mhm.
Will it still have to go to election, or do you accept those three if they're all qualifying?
I would
So
think that they would.
we'll have to ask that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then all those other questions. If we get through this part, see if the community wants to spend $11,000 for 3 people to do this review is the very first thing. And then after there, I think I will start with some good questions to MSU. They've been through this numerous times with the full spectrum of Montana. So they're probably going to know what's gone really well for towns and what has not.
So, and the 11,000 is levied
Yeah.
to pay for the review.
So that's what the big vote number is really it comes down to, are you approving that amount? Is it too much? Is it not enough? There was a lot of, I don't want to scare people away from this process by saying 11,000. I mean, we started at 5, but then you start looking at the numbers. Postage was $400 and something, $452 in 2016. You take it at the rate that it's now, we're going to spend over $800 just on postage if we run the same amount of mailers and stuff. So there's not a lot of, I didn't actually have a lot of flexibility. I tried to be pretty accurate in calculating what it's going to take, because if you short it, then it kind of undermines the whole process in my mind. Like if you can't commit the finances to do it, like, oh, sorry, we didn't have the ability. And then I talked to Officer Moore as well about like how much IT time he could do surveys like the library did and integrate those in as well. And budgeted that time in there, which was, he said, about an hour total to figure all that in. So that's part of the calculation too. I guess my notes weren't complete on my.
So if it gets voted through, then the changes will go into effect in 2026? Is that correct? Or if, sorry, say the timeline again, I don't understand.
What do you mean
happening in-
changes?
I don't know, what happens in 2026?
What if the committee decides
That they do want to go
they
through
want
this?
to change in government? When does that happen?
Then that's a whole nother process. It's not just like the committee and the report. Then there's a whole process of changing your form of government. That's not a one public hearing and you're done kind of thing. That's another worse than the water rates kind of
So
process.
is that another year process or 2?
2. I would bet that's a 2-year timeline. All right, any other questions on it? That was my big, yes, feel free to be critical because I don't want to scare people away with that number and make them feel like, well, let's not levy that amount. It's not worth it. Is it realistic in what we need to accomplish this?
I think those are realistic costs. I mean,
I'm just thinking, I'm like, 10 years, you had 3 people and they spent $3,000. Yeah, cost has definitely gone up.
All right. Well, then I'm going to call the vote. I think we're at Mr. Hardy.
Aye.
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 All right. We'll send that on to the county. All right. So, to the next point, the appointment of an advisory committee. So it says, and I should have wrote my notes for this, but that the mayor may appoint with approval advisory committees. We had this whole discussion last meeting. I know I talked with Commissioner Palmerton and she had contacted MSU and they said, well, you could write a resolution that said any contract over X amount of dollars requires a committee to be formed. Well, we signed a contract last month that was over X amount of dollars that I probably didn't need an advisory committee to negotiate. There was a $0 amount one that I greatly appreciated the help from. So I figured in any that I know I'm going to need more time than what I have, I'll just appoint an advisory committee to help me eat through stuff. So we've got 3 or 4. So that's going to be the new method, is just establishing or appointing an advisory committee on that. So I wanted to keep the committee to 2 people to help me out. Again, if you get larger groups, it's harder to get everybody's schedule to work. So if I get hit by a bus or a moped or whatever tomorrow, Corey's in charge. So I would like Corey to be on on the advisory committee, and he's kind of been through the first initial meetings on the same timeline as I was. So I'd like to appoint Corey, and then I have been all over the gamut on this one, on the second appointment, and I would like to appoint John Way as the second member because he showed so much initiative in coming in and saying, how can I help? And I need a lot of help with this one. And then I'll give you a break because we have several coming right after that. So those are the 2 appointments that I would like to make to the advisory committee. And with that, we've got a chunk of paperwork, and I'd like to schedule a work session in 2 weeks as well. Does everybody feel comfortable with about 200 pages, 300 pages of reading in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'd like to see any
Okay.
information that was sent. Yeah.
200 to 300 pages for what now?
That's the amount of
The
information.
records request.
The records
Green
request.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh,
Okay.
so he did say a ream of paper. If you would like to deny that appointment because you have too much going on, that's understandable as well. It's got to be the ability to do a lot of delving.
The only thing I can say is, I mean, I'm happy to help wherever I can. I would like to put a timeline on it to hold our feet to the fire a little bit.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we're moving forward, that, we'll have some sort of timeline. Open-ended things never get done. And, so, yeah, I would love to see a timeline put on that this committee has a month to, try to negotiate this or figure this out, or reports every month or something, to keep, the chains moving.
Okay. So I still need somebody to approve the fact that I appointed. I can't do it without your guys.
The question are you up for the task?
500 pages? Yeah, no problem.
Okay, you up for it?
We're all getting it. Yes.
Yeah.
So then would we reach out to you instead of the mayor for questions?
You can do either.
Right.
And then there's all of our stuff as well. All of the information that we have to go through.
That you mean
The
town
town
of Ennis.
The town of Ennis. So
Yeah,
a giant packet together for Monday. That's my Monday plan, was the giant packet so that we all had the exact same information to look at.
Are you gonna make that packet on paper or?
No, it's going to be scanned in, kind of. I mean, I don't want to kill an entire forest for this.
Okay, that's what you said, I didn't understand.
And so will the advisory committee be reporting back each month or however long? Yes, to all of us? Yeah.
So it should be on the agenda, just an update every month.
Yeah, I mean,
Hopefully.
I'd like to see it done by,
But like I said,
2 months tops.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's also contingent upon Madison Valley.
Exactly.
You know, it's their urgency for them as well.
Agreed. I make a motion to approve of the appointment of John Way and Corey Hardy to the advisory committee to the sheriff's MOU.
All right. Any other discussion amongst the appointment?
Give a second.
Oh, sorry. Did I not hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion?
So you guys are good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess what's that format gonna look like when we?
That means the three of us need to sit down next week and highlight any questions that have arose from the information, what's working, what's not, and then contact Duncan and see when
Yeah, I'm gone all this next week, but then I'm back and I'll be here for the next 3 months, so.
Okay.
We get out of this next week, I'm good.
So do we want to have we need to have a work session regardless the week after to go over some of the other stuff. Kind of make our tentative plans on this summer bit. Like I said, that water rate thing is going to be, so we need a work session to go through quite a few items that if we don't plan very far in advance won't go well.
Can we earmark a spot on the work session agenda for questions?
Yes.
That we might have for this MOU?
Mm-hmm. And that gives us all 2 weeks to read, and then if you find something, and then we can get with the sheriff's office with any questions.
The 22nd, Nikki, is that what you're?
The
20th.
Today's that?
That Thursday.
You want the regular time?
Yeah. Pop. Wait. Yeah, that works. All right. All right, any other discussion on that? And then Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, look for a packet in Google Drive. I'll send you an email when it's out. I want to make sure that I got all of it. So we're all on the same page, okay? All right, then I'm calling the vote. Mr. Abernathy.
Aye.
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 All right. So 8:19, you don't see anything really in your packet, and we're gonna try this out because it's due tomorrow. So this grant is through Department of Commerce. We would like to put it forth for the growth policy. A member of our planning board has been working on it diligently all this week as we try to pull this out. I contacted Great West to see if they had the ability to do this for us, and they did not have the time or the resources to do it. So they sent us some information to kind of help us out. Lyndon, thank you, is working on it right now. And I have my part that is done and complete. So kind of need your final approval to apply. And the main portion that I thought you would be concerned about would be the budget portion. So the grant is for $30,000 and the match is 20%. We have to prove that we had those funds. And in your packet, you can see where our expenditures and stuff are with the planning board. And there's two $5,000 line items there in both professional services and in consulting services. So I feel like we could comfortably use one of those line items for a portion of the grant match. And then they also accept work itself as like wages of an employee as an in-kind contribution towards the match. So I put another $1,000 of employee on those, but again, they're not finalized, so we can still change that if we think that we're going to have more than that. But I think that's a pretty good guesstimate of what the town, as far as resources, can do, is just have it in that format, and that makes the 6,000 that's the match for the 30,000. Does that make sense?
We have a budget line item. Policy is about 10K.
The whole planning board budget is 10K.
10-2.
10-2. I didn't go into your postage for any reason.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry, the letters.
yes, we can still grab them in, and I made a petition form, like, because I hadn't seen any. So
Is it a requirement to have the letters, or like the to show the need for it, right? Yes.
this is new. This is the first time they've ever done this. So we kind of just went off the check boxes. It says either or. Well, it says letters. Great West said you can do it in this format as well. So I've sent the petition form around to some of our larger groups too, to see if they can sign it and get it back to us as well.
Or put it online?
We have to have it tomorrow, so I guess we're under the time crunch.
Okay.
If anybody feels that we should have a growth policy that updates everything listed on that sheet over there, including our issues of housing and responsible growth and what's icky and what's not icky. I feel like we've gone through that as a review of conditional uses.
Yeah, the town was just notified, like when?
The 18th was the first of January, was the first, like, any kind of training. This was a new grant opportunity. This is the first time it's ever been out. It's not like our typical grant cycles of CDBG and MSEP, and all of those are established traditional grant cycles. 819 apparently was established in this last legislative session, and I don't know that it's going to happen every year, and it's never been done. And it's specifically designed, we all remember the governor's housing task force that he established, and this whole, we need to have affordable housing, and that bill, House Bill 819, is an extension kind of that thought that we need to evaluate housing needs assessments and update. So it gave a list of what we could and could not do with 819, and growth policy is in there. And there's a lot of things that you identify in a growth policy that relates to housing and housing needs and affordability. So that's why we thought it was a good fit when we thought it wasn't something we were anticipating. I was actually kind of looking at the community block development grant in March originally for the growth policy. But if we can use
So that could be a backup for this.
It could be a backup for this. A plan on the plan.
Is there something you want us to sign?
Yes, it's up here.
Gotcha.
So do we need to?
Can we take a few of those and get as many signatures as we can?
Yeah.
Next. And what time's it due by tomorrow?
If we have it here.
Can
Let's
I
say by
email it?
noon, because we have till 5, and that gives us 5 hours to file it. So if everything's here by noon.
Can I email it to you by noon if I get any signatures? Or can I take a copy of it and call it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I think there might want to be a motion that we're going to try for this. All we can do is try. It's not like we're going to have points against us for trying and failing. But we do have the funds to match should we get it. And then it goes just towards the growth policy.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve HB 819 grant application activity for the
Second.
town of Ennis.
Sorry, second.
Public, any questions, comments? Anything from online? All right. Anything else, guys?
So, Bill,
It's a long one.
Mhm.
So I think I don't know that it got dissolved fast enough or digested fast enough to get, I'm wondering who all is going to actually get in on it. It'll be interesting.
Is there a certain number of applicants that are accepted or just if you
No.
qualify?
So,
well, it says here in the bill that it had to go through rulemaking, so that's a year's process right there
mm-hmm.
at the state level. Section 10 of the bill is rulemaking, which I'm sure took a year on that. So
So it's almost a rushed, weird feel on this one. And it's more complicated when we talked about 355 last month. It's pretty straightforward. Like we already have the amount allotted. You just must verify projects through a process. This is like a whole different gamut of. So all we can do is go for it. And then if we don't get it, then we kind of have the
CDBG March.
I'm always afraid I'm going to say that wrong.
CBG.
There's a lot of letters in there. All right. Any other discussion on going for it?
no, let's do it.
All right. You're up first.
Aye.
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 All right.
Can commissioners sign it?
Yeah. Please. And I'll email you all copies right now. I think I sent one to John and
Okay.
I sent one to Alan Warbeck, the school, quite a few others. So we'll see what shakes out. All right. It's all up to you guys now. Commission reports.
I'll start. The only thing I really have to add is that I went to the Reimagining Rural at the library. It was very well attended. I thought it was a great meeting. We got a lot of different folks, a lot of different opinions and ideas and stuff. It was. I'm really looking forward to the next one. Actually, it's a good meeting. That's really all I had. Our planning board meeting is next week, next Tuesday here at 6:15. And I think we're trying to actually move the location from here to the library, but that wouldn't be until the March meeting because with all the stuff going on with Lyndon and he's focused elsewhere. So for next week, it'll be here.
And do you think you're gonna do every other or like opposite of?
It's the second Tuesday of the month. Is that, or were you talking about?
She's
each
making a
month,
face.
or-
Yeah, no, I like that it's next week because then it's not 2 meetings in 1 week and I will make it. I will be there, I promise.
Right. So if the first of the month lands on a Wednesday, then the
Then
town
it's
hall
the next
meeting,
week.
yeah, the commission meeting and the planning board meetings are on different weeks.
Do you ever feel like the community needs a giant calendar?
And a community center?
So you know what's going on? I have like now little notes on all of our other calendars, like the Lions Club schedule, library board schedule, but maybe I just put the paper one up but I don't have the basketball schedule and how you overlay that. And
That's it. All right, yeah, just spent this last month trying to get up to speed, working on that Lions Club thing. That was sure fun to to get to know Mr. Haney a little bit and spend some time on the phone with him. Also, I think the commission needs to really pay attention to that Big Sky thing that got voted down with the Madison Valley, the medical center. Because if you read their master 10-year plan, it is to defund the medical center, the school, and the library all, in the next 10 years. And personally, that's without those three organizations funded in this town, I don't think we have a town here. So, I know that's a county thing, but as a town, we need to be cognizant of that and paying attention to that, because that's going to affect, life as we know it in Ennis, Montana. And, they said it right in their master plan. This is what they are going to do, or going to try to do. And our county commissioner said, yeah, that's a great plan, guys, go forth, which brings up another question. But yeah, I think we need to start paying attention to that and yeah.
And putting a road counter right by the Episcopal Church in Jeffers for the daily count of what part of Ennis community contributes to Big Sky to keep it going.
Yeah.
I know pretty much grew up out there, and there was like 2 vehicles. Now it's definitely 40 miles an hour. I'm glad there's not a lot of little kids like there used to be hanging out at Nana's house right on the road, because it's fast paced in a lot of them. 2 times a day.
Yeah, and they're taking aim right, and yeah, we gotta put up at least a fight somewhere on that. No, of course.
And they're not.
It's our contribution.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than that. They use the hospital, the schools,
I can tell you how many contractors stay at the inn that drive up there every day. I've been full this week with contractors. So.
And they're not going away.
No, and, I think the first battle kind of was won by Ennis, was it 2 weeks ago? Or at least, they forfeited or whatever, but doesn't mean they're not going to regroup and come back. So
In 1 year.
Yeah.
There is ongoing discussion and investigation. The thought is they don't have to wait a year.
Yeah. So
The fear is they don't have to wait a year.
So that's what I did this month, trying to dive into that master plan, and trying to understand it a little better.
It's pretty scary. Yeah.
And was it the the capital improvement?
Yeah, the capital improvement
plan.
10-year master plan, or whatever they call it.
That needs to be on our radar too, capital improvement plan. That was my other thought, if we actually got 819. The other one I think is applicable for capital improvement.
That's all I got.
Can't really remember till last Friday from our library board. I feel like there was something I was going to bring up. But also thank you, Karen, for spearheading the Reimagine Rural, and I apologize I didn't make it, but I'll be there, and thank you for your hard work that you did on that. That's
all. I actually have a list today, but we went through it and hit most of it. And I know that there's, I'm not gonna have to get into that one, the forced housing expansion, because that's in the midst of a lawsuit. I was wondering if we could go back to the Airbnb and possibly forming a committee. And then, because Florian's got resort tax, I know you got it on your list for tonight. You need to form a committee too. I know you got it on there. You need to collect somebody and start getting started on that. But we talked about everything else, so I'm good.
So if you have a legislative item that you are considering for this year, can you send me an email so that we can so I can put it together on the work session of maybe our priority list of
what we want to get accomplished?
What needs to, the rates are going to be first. Kind of like I'm just putting my foot down. It's got to happen first. And then after that, what else? I mean, if we're holding a public hearing and putting it in the paper, you might as well get 2 for 1 and get, if you really want to do the panhandling, whatever it is. If you want 26 chickens instead of 6, if you want,
What about that thing with the crosswalk and lights and Lions Club had offered? Is that something that goes to legislation? To the, at the crosswalks, Lions Club had offered to help.
It was
put flags or
flags.
something there.
we have to,
Is that legislation though?
that's not legislation. That's you have to call the,
State.
Calling DOT to get approval for it?
Yeah.
What is the status of that?
Susie was going to check into that one, and I will put that on my, because she had the new contact.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because we're still excited to do it if we get approval.
From the people that let us or don't let us.
What do you think the terminology would be used for that? Crosswalk?
Yeah, I have
Okay.
flags for
Assistance.
Yeah, if you've never used them, they're pretty slick.
They are.
Just
Depending
wave a
on
red
who's
flag
coming.
in the air and go popping across the street.
I just,
Don't lose any parking.
as long as they double the budget for the first round of junior high kids that are going to go steal those and put them everywhere around town. We all just know what's going to happen. It's kind of like putting the bench out on the ice. They just can't resist. Okay.
We'll have to start off with cheap flags. We'll go to expensive ones later.
All right, Randy, you had anything else? But please email me so I can put that agenda together for the work session. I want to do that quick, like, because I got a few other things on my. I have to do some stuff.
That's all I got.
Okay, Corey.
Yeah, I guess echoing Commissioner Way's comment about losing 1.7 million in hospital funding alone. You know, we have to think of ways to move forward. Yeah, Joe Dill Schneider called me up immediately after that meeting and was just like, hey, we gotta move on resort tax. So I guess that's definitely something on my list of things to do is to get a committee formed. I do have an email into Danny Bierswall asking him. I didn't quite follow through with my training in Helena to go to reach out to communities who've actually put out a brochure of information, basically just getting rid of the rumor mill on a lot of aspects regarding resort tax. And I think that's education's like the first thing you have to hit, and then you can actually maybe have a conversation about it afterwards. But so yeah, that's definitely yeah. I've said it before about Big Sky. Big Sky's generated $130 million of resort tax funds. And that's why they have the absolute best of absolutely everything. They're all the employees that work for their whatever their distinction is. They're not a town, but their district, I guess, are the best people from all over the United States. So. Yeah, right. I attended an HR training with
Derek Shepard.
Derek Shepard, who's really had a lot to say. It's pretty interesting. If anyone ever has any questions about HR concerning the town, I recommend chatting with him or for anything. What else? Attended the Reimagine Rural meeting at the library, and I thought that was, was a good intro. I had already knew a lot of that stuff just from trainings that I've been to, but I think there's 3 more sessions.
2 more.
Two more sessions following, and I think those will be good. We definitely had a packed room at the library, which was fun. I think the community definitely needs to do a lot more of that. We'll get together and just having conversations and talking about stuff. Which was number one priority on the library's strategic plan is create community connection. That was pretty cool, especially post-COVID. I just feel like there's a lot of people who are just like adverse to communicating. Oh, hell with it. I'll go to the next meeting or whatever. Yeah, it just takes it's practice. So, yeah, other than that, I have nothing.
All right. So we kind of went through the growth policies, our next one to update. I've been working on that grant application with Lyndon kind of frantically at the moment, to be honest. The next one that we need to pull off is the capital improvement. Like if you are legitimately looking at an evaluation of a resort tax, if you don't have a good 10-year capital improvement plan, which ours is from 2009, so it's already a wee bit out of date, I think it's still going to be hard to pull off. We're going to want to have all of our ducks in a row as to, hey mom, I want $50. What for? Because if it's for a piercing or a tattoo, it's just not happening. You're going to have to find another source. But if you can lay out this much in water, this much in wastewater, this much in streets, this is the identified issues in our growth policy, and working with the county on the housing assessment needs that they put out. And our capital improvement, how we're going to legitimately plan for replacement in 10-year increments and be responsible at keeping that up to date so that we're not having our best snowplow be 1972.
Isn't it super expensive for the capital improvement to get that rolling?
Everything's really expensive.
Okay.
It's got if there was a tax paid for it. I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully next year's budget, maybe?
But we need to start looking at grants for it. That's why I was looking at maybe the block development grant or stuff like that. Start digging into what.
Do we have any idea general?
Or even looking for next year. But I think that's the next essential piece. Stormwater system probably isn't. You can add that later in your whole resort tax evaluation, that if you want the giant puddle to go away in front of the magic mirror, you probably need a storm drain system to make that happen. And those are not 100,000. That's another probably couple $1 million project there. And then you have a streets evaluation. And then, once you have all that done, you can have a parks. Just saying. They have I was checking the list for this grant, and it has when you did all your major documents, and I didn't even know there was a whole section on parks and rec.
Do you even have a guesstimate on the CIP? Or is it all one huge thing, or is it small phases individually?
You mean for a cost?
Yeah.
40,000. That would be my guess. Growth policy, master plan, all those are running between 30 and 40. A water PER runs about 40. I think all your major planning documents run anywhere between 30 and 40. And that just happens to be what a lot of the grants are, 30 and 40. So I think it's a correlation there in the cost. So that's kind of where I think there. So what did I do? Worked on a Lions Club agreement. Got sick for Reimagine Rural. Your budget for this resolution and the training for HR. Completely revamp of the system. That was the hard lesson of that. The applications, the everything. Need a whole hard work over. And staff, I got a lot of good comment all the way around from the training. Like they really enjoyed it. So I've already reached out for other on-site training because MMIA, like they don't charge us to come down. They want to reduce the liability. We all pay less if we identify. So the next 2 sections, and I'm going to try and just do a quarterly training here at Town Hall. The next one is they have a whole defensive driving for all employees as they go back and forth. So that's one that they've got. And then a site evaluation too. They actually spend several days on and identify high risk areas and then go through mitigation of them. They had one town, like an example was they had a lot of back injuries and it turned out that it was just how they were getting out of a certain piece of equipment. They came down, hung out for a couple days, went, oh, well, if you change how you get out of this equipment by doing this, now you've reduced your back injuries. So I go through and try to identify that, and it keeps our overall costs down with the less amount of claims we have. Then an agenda and kind of the regular staff checks. The facilitator training for Reimagine Rural that I didn't get to go to. That was not, that was the only part of Reimagine Rural that I was not as, I think can be streamlined for next time. Can send to Tara. It felt like a lot of reading from PowerPoint, and that's not my favorite kind of presentation. Any questions for me?
Did you hit up MSU Extension office about zoning board of adjustments criteria? What the criteria is to choose members of it?
No, it's in our town book.
All right, we have that already. I don't know.
It's already a it's that is set by
Resolution.
no, it's in
Yeah, it's in the book. I've seen
town
it.
code.
Yeah.
Or how that goes. So we have to publish those in the paper for one position for planning board. And that one, Craig, it says of the 4 members, 2 are within town. 2 are within the planning. And I don't remember which position is being replaced. If it's in town or within, because we can only have 2 and 2, and I'd hate to have. Is it in town?
I think you're correct, yes.
So we need an in town, not within the planning jurisdiction. Okay, so that answers the question of how to put that in the paper. Okay, that's all I got. So email me with our list for work session so we can kind of hash out our priorities this year. A timeline, okay?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
But
Me. Or, I don't care. You can have it.
All right.
no,
Thank
I
you.
didn't second it. I was just going to ask about unscheduled matters.
You did.
Do you have something for unscheduled matters?
Well, I
You
was
did claims
going
up
to
here.
make a suggestion that maybe we could put something on the agenda for next time for discussion and or maybe vote. And that is no parking on Main Street, July 3rd, or no overnight parking on Main Street, July 3rd.
Wow, you really want to make people mad, don't you?
Nerds. I've been scoping out my spot since.
And it's right in front of the
If you want
building
it,
with the green canopy.
if you want it on there.
Isn't that a state?
If you,
Montana Department.
State?
it's DOT that controls that, correct?
No, it does?
Okay.
I love the ambition.
You're gonna be in the parade anyway, aren't you?
I don't know, maybe.
But no, do you want it?
He's gonna
What's that?
open it.
You
He's
want it
gonna
for
open
work
a
session?
towing company.
Just
by the
email me.
time it's
I guess, but if it's not something that the town can decide on, if, something that has to go before DOT.
It's got the amazing journey, no one's listening.
So Then if it's a non-starter, it sounds like, is that?
I'm
is
putting
that what you're
special
telling me?
events on there because I think that's an answer to a lot of things in the special event policy. Like I was looking at Buttes and when they do the festival, any like large event that happens has to be filed through the town, and that's what they do instead of like we have a business license, we have our fee in there, and I think it's shouldn't be. I just think special events should be their own thing. But that's my thought on a better policy plan.
Check it too, that it is the.
Yeah, that one's gonna be a,
I have to do that.
you wanna pack this room, don't you?
Yeah. We'll talk later.
So this year it's June 30th.